Hey everybody. I'm in Iceland now, but I just finished up with SteamFest. That ended yesterday. I only posted the first day of SteamFest because honestly, I was having such a good time there that I didn't want to distract from it. I didn't want to be distracted from it. Posts take a minimum of an hour if we're talking about a really quick and dirty post. And an hour was too much to give up. SteamFest was probably the best weekend of my life. I really wanna emphasize that. That's not hyperbole, that's not exaggeration. SteamFest was beginning to end bliss. It was all good. I didn't need to go anywhere in Amsterdam. Granted, I've been there a few times before, so I've seen the city. I didn't need to do any events. I just needed to be around other Steemians, and they did not disappoint. I've been reading some of the other posts from people who went to SteamFest, and everybody's saying the same thing. This is a group of the most independent. Kevin Wong, who's great, who I got to meet, who I got to hang out with, great, who's now I consider like a brother of mine. I think he mentioned this in one of his posts about how Steemians are like cats. And they always say that you can't herd cats. And that's always what I've felt like. I've always felt like a cat, and I never liked being part of the herd, and I never liked being told what to do. But it's like all the cats came together voluntarily. It was just magical. Another way I've been describing it is that it was like it was like an unofficial entrepreneurial boot camp. The problem with those entrepreneurial boot camps is that they're so contrived. Everybody's trying so hard. It just doesn't feel real. I don't know how to explain. I haven't really done many, so maybe they're not all like that. I'm sure they're not. I'm sure some are great, but SteamFest, it was just like this thinly veiled reason for all these people who really want to solve difficult problems using blockchain technology to come together. And once we got together, it was like we all already knew each other. And you could just walk up to anybody and you could just immediately start talking to them and you would be in sync. We were all on the same frequency, despite the fact that there was amazing diversity there. And I don't mean the dumbed down version of diversity that permeates our culture now. I'm talking about real diversity. I'm talking about diversity of thought. Steemit even has the best hippies. Because we've got hippies. We've got people of all types. We're all bound. Dan the man did a post either today or yesterday where he talked about all the different political ideologies and how they really have a common ground, and that a well-designed economic system gets rid of all the divides that those ideologies see between one another. And even though Dan is specifically talking about a minimum basic income and a separate mechanism for enabling that, I already see a lot of that in Steemit, because you don't even think about what divides you. Everybody is so open-minded and everybody is so interested in the future. That was another thing. I think Steemians are very unique people. That doesn't mean I don't think Steemit can expand to the broader public. But I think it's going to be a more linear growth. I was talking about this with somebody else. I think Steemit's growth will not be quite as exponential as past sites like Facebook or Twitter, for that reason. But I think it's going to be a healthier growth because people are going to see how happy, how fulfilled, how successful Steemit users become for themselves. They're going to have to see it for themselves. It's going to be when their friend, starts using Steemit and becomes transformed by this community, which is really the special thing here. And that's one of the things that going to SteemFest really solidified for me, was that the best monetary system in the world, the best website in the world, none of it matters if the people aren't amazing. And Dan and Ned did a great job of figuring out how to attract the most amazing people in the world. People who are smart, who are empathetic, who are open-minded. But in addition, another thing I've noticed is that we're very interested in thinking about the future, which is very rare. When I talk to people, I like thinking about how things can be different in the future, what we can build in the future that fixes the problems we have today. And 99% of other people basically respond to any discussion like that by saying something along the lines of, but things aren't like that now, therefore they can't be like that in the future. And it's this weird, cyclical, circular, self-defeating logic where you go, well, what if we built this decentralized app that does the same thing and except without any centralized authority? If we build a Facebook without the company Facebook, or to get even more adventurous, you could say, well, what if we decentralized law enforcement, where instead of having these state-run entities, we had people submitting their qualifications to the crowd, and then guilds self-organizing all over the world with these qualified individuals, and with the qualified individuals themselves handling the management and the regulation of these law enforcement guilds, and then adapting dynamically and flexibly to crime rates and locations. They could move with the crime. They could, grow or shrink as crime expands and contracts. And people are just like, no, man, that's not possible. What would you do with all these police that exist now? I mean, you've got all these police departments, and you've got you've got all these regulations and all that, and you're just like, look, I'm just thinking, I'm just asking, I'm just saying the way we do things in the future are going to be different than they are today. The sooner we start thinking about how they're going to be, the better we can craft them, the better we can guide their evolution, instead of just sitting back and hoping that it evolves in the right direction, which usually means letting the elites, letting the people who are already in power determine the direction of the evolution. And then people always wonder how people manage to stay in power, how the elite manage to stay in power, why power structures are so consistent. If you're obsessed with race, then you can then it's why are there so many white people in power? Why are there so many men in power? Well, if your ideology basically demands that the status quo always be defaulted to, then you can't be surprised when the status quo continues. But Steemians, on the other hand, are always in that mindset. They're always thinking about how things could be better. And when you have a conversation with them, if you disagree with them, they respond with interest because they want to make sure that they're thinking about the future right. And that is such an exciting thing to be a part of. And I didn't drink that much while I was there. And I don't think this wasn't one of those fests where people drank a lot or really indulged in their vices. It wasn't like the insurance brokers or the accountants, you know, when they get together for their conferences and they just go insane because you feel like, you know, this is the first time they've been let out of the cage all year, and this is their time to like get all their vices out of their system. I think most of us were too eager to have conversations and to remember those conversations, to really indulge in our vices, and so everybody was just really really handled themselves great. And this is another thing I was thinking about, which is that I was my best self. I felt like I was being my best self. Was I perfect? No. Were there moments when I was possibly dickish? Yes. But on the whole, I felt like the people, Steam It, the whole thing, it made me my best self. And I think that's another part of what people love so much about the platform and why people had so much fun and loved SteemFest so much. And shout out to Roland P, by the way, for the amazing work that he did. I can't imagine how much work it took to create this whole that whole festival, to get all the spaces, to get all the food, to get everything organized. I couldn't possibly have done it myself. It felt like it was a much bigger festival. It felt like they'd been doing it for years. They were very well organized. And that reminds me that all of us are already talking about next year, because none of us wanted it to end. And of course, Roland P should be the one handling it. And he mentioned Colorado, which I'm all for. Boulder, Colorado was mentioned. I'm all for that. I don't really care where it is, to be honest. I mean, I'd probably go wherever it is. It could be in freaking Hong Kong, and I'd probably go. But there was one thing I wanted to kind of point out, which is that I want it to be long. I want it to be longer. It wasn't enough time. And I don't know if it needs to be any place interesting. It doesn't need to, it could be on a farm. Like, that could be cool. We just need each other. I don't think people were super, I mean, people went to the tourist attractions, people went to the events, and I'm sure they had a blast, and it was really great. But I think we just needed each other. I mean, we had so much fun hanging out, chatting, talking about ideas, talking about the ideas that we've been exposed to. We saw so many great presentations. I'm so optimistic about the future of Steam and Steam It. Steam Sports is really exciting. The prediction market application that they're building is something I proposed in an earlier video. I mean, I don't know if they saw it, but it was an idea that I was like, this is a great idea. And they're implementing it so well. That could be huge for Steam. Steamstagram, which is basically just an Instagram clone, and I think an excellent example of the type of apps that we should be building first. We should just be cloning every social application. Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, although that seems tough. Anyway, at the very least, microblogging in the form of Twitter and Instagram. And I love that it was familiar. That's a really important thing. People might look at that, Steamstagram, and say, this is too similar to Instagram. But that's exactly what you want. You want people to go to it and instantly recognize it, except with this slight little difference there, that there's money there, that there's points there. Oh, somebody else, there was another application called Busy that was basically like a Facebook clone. Much more so than Steam It. But it even looked better than Facebook. And of course powered by the Steam blockchain and all of the content that people create using Steam It. But then it has like a photo stream feature. It looked awesome. That could be huge for Steam because, again, much more familiar, but just with that extra monetary element layered on top of it, it's exactly what we need. After we burn through this first wave of clones, then we can get to innovating totally revolutionary platforms. But like, if you look at the internet, the first applications that were built on the internet were clones of analog businesses. So like the white pages, the yellow pages, put them online. Encyclopedias, put them online. Newspapers, put them online, right? Just digital clones of analog industries. And so I think that's a great place to start, and there was so much great stuff. I had so much fun. It made me think that we need, and everybody was on board with this. I got to speak to Ned. I got to speak to so many great people. In my post that I'm gonna post this video in, I'm going to talk more about the people that I met. I'm going to reference them and show photos and videos of those people. I don't want to try mentioning them because there's too many to mention, and I don't want to leave anybody out. Everybody was so great. It was so fun hanging out with every single person who was there. So I'm going to do that in the post. But I was talking to Ned about this, and we were talking about weekly SteemFests, monthly, small SteamFests all year, bigger SteamFests every 6 months, and then like a huge SteamFest every year. Like, that's what we want. And Ned even went further where he was like, yeah, Steam City, Steam Country, then the whole world's going to be powered on it. Like, it's really exciting stuff, and my faith never really wavered. I really believe in the platform, but I was impressed. My expectations were exceeded both by SteamFest and the applications that I see that are coming in the pipeline. They're great. There are applications that will be appealing and comprehensible and intuitive to ordinary people. Now, the only thing I would like to say, and I think everybody gets this, is at least the people building the apps, is that we don't need to talk about Steam. We don't need to talk about Steam it. When we build these apps, they should just work. They should just use Steam technology to deliver a product or service to people in a seamless way without drawing attention to the underlying tech. When you make a website, you don't say powered by HTML, you don't say powered by JavaScript. You just show the value. And so while I saw this embodied in the applications that I was shown, I just think it bears repeating that we should be building products and services that just work, not products and services that talk about Steam all the time. And like, to that point, I don't know if Steamstagram should really be called Steamstagram. Now, I think it's actually a really good name to start with, and maybe they evolve out of that as the user base grows, but not everything has to have Steam in it, That's why I liked Busy. I liked that they were just using a word that we're all familiar with, and I assume, actually I never thought about it, but I guess the reason they're naming it Busy is maybe to say, like, look, you're a busy person. This is a social network designed for you, not designed for the person who wants to spend hours and hours all day on the social network, but I'm just making that up. I don't know, but I just like that the name is just disconnected from Steam and Steam It. It's just a standalone app built on Steam, and then people will say, well, how does this work? I don't get it. And then they'll find it out for themselves. We're often trying too hard to shove Steam down people's throat. In my opinion, I mean, look, everybody's doing such a great job, right? But at the same time, we all want to be really critical. And I think that's a good thing, because we all want everything to be the absolute best. It's the ultimate compliment that we think people's work is worthy of criticism and fixing. Even the most critical person of Steam, I'll say it was Cheetah. It was a guy named Scott. He controls the Cheetah bot. I believe his username is also Annex. And he's got serious reservations about the platform. We talked about it, and they seem totally valid. But at the end of the day, he was like, none of the other platforms are going to beat it. They're all going to die. This is the only one that has a chance. And so even the staunchest critics want to see it succeed, believe it's going to succeed. They just want to help it succeed faster, help it become better, faster, sooner.